What's good, YouTube? We back with another reaction video. It's your boy Dollar, and today we got how a man just simply walked out of prison. I don't understand how somebody could simply just walk out of prison, but we finna see today. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, comment down below what y'all want me to react to next, and let's get it.
Honey found a coupon code for $221. We're literally about to check out without honey.
Alright, yeah,
You would think breaking out of prison would be difficult, but a man named Stephen J. Russell made it look easy. He escaped from prison not just once, but 4 different times. How did he do it? You're probably thinking that Russell couldn't have just walked out, but that's exactly what he did on 2 different occasions, and you won't believe how he escaped the other 2 times. Stephen Russell started his criminal career as a con artist. As the police would find out later, he was really good at what he did. Russell's first major con was something simple, but would end up evolving into a lifetime of making the authorities look incompetent. It would also result in him getting 144 years in jail.
Damn,
in the 1990s, Russell faked a slip and fall to collect on insurance money for a big payday. However, upon investigation, his con was uncovered and he was convicted for fraud. Russell was sentenced to 6 months in prison, but he had no intention of staying incarcerated for that long. This would be the first time he would use his con artist abilities to get out of jail early. In a way, his first escape was a tragic love story. Stephen Russell was in love with a man named Jimmy Campbell, who was dying from AIDS. They had been together when he was caught for fraud, and Russell had no desire to let the man go.
What? Hold up.
Stephen Russell was in love with a man named Jimmy Campbell, who was dying from AIDS.
Come on, bro. Be safe out there. Like, you in love with somebody that's dying from AIDS? I understand, but yo, he's dying from AIDS.
Tragic love story. Stephen Russell was in love with a man named Jimmy Campbell, who was dying from AIDS. They had been together when he was caught for fraud, and Russell had no desire to let the man he loved go through the terrible disease alone. So Russell did the only thing he could.
I mean, that's nice. You didn't want him to go through this disease alone. Alright.
He escaped from prison so he could be by Campbell's side until
Oh, I understand. Alright.
disease alone. So Russell did the only thing
that was
he
nice.
escaped from prison so he could be by Campbell's side until the end. Russell had been in jail for only 4 weeks, but he was so in love with Jimmy Campbell that he couldn't wait any longer. The con man concocted a scheme that would allow him to walk right out of the prison without a single person noticing he was missing.
He had to go help his mans out.
While in jail, Russell had stolen street clothes that had been discarded. He then confiscated a walkie-talkie to complete his escape disguise. He hid the items away until the time was right. When no one was looking and the guards were preoccupied, Russell donned the civilian clothing he had stashed away, clipped the walkie-talkie to his side, and made his way through the prison as if he were an undercover cop. Clearly, no one was worried that a man in regular clothes was walking around the prison without proper identification, since Russell made his way to the exit and walked right out. He then proceeded to locate Jimmy Campbell and stay by his side until his lover eventually passed away from the virus.
That's real. That's real.
He's good at being a con artist.
See, that's real. I thought it was on some other shit. I'm thinking it's on some sexual shit, on some sexual rape shit. Like, he's dying from AIDS because of him. I'm like, damn, my nigga. Like, fuck, you sick fuck. Like, I'm thinking like he raped the victim and gave him AIDS. Now he's dying of AIDS, and he still loved him, and he's the one that gave him AIDS type shit. But
The exit and walked right out.
he tried to help his man out. I understand now.
Stay by his side until his lover eventually passed away from the virus. Russell mourned, but continued to do what he was good at, being a con artist.
So how long was he out for?
Happened as Russell flew under the police's radar. He fell in love again. The name of Russell's second love interest may sound familiar to you. Philip Morris. The reason you may have heard his name before is because of the movie I Love You, Philip Morris, starring Jim Carrey. The movie's based off of the next part of Stephen Russell's life. After the death of his former lover, Stephen Russell conned his way into a CFO job at a medical management firm. He had no experience as a chief financial officer or in the medical field. He also had a fraud conviction, but to a con man like Russell, that was just all easily hidden or covered up. Russell knew he was wildly unqualified for the job, but he wasn't there to move up the corporate ladder. Instead, he planned to steal money from the company. Persuaded Philip Morris to join in on his scheme, and they managed to embezzle $800,000 from the company before it all came to an end. The authorities discovered what Stephen Russell was doing and who he was. They immediately put him under arrest and set his bond at $950,000. This was an excessively high bail for embezzlement, but the police knew Russell was a flight risk and didn't want him skipping town. However, Russell had no desire to spend more time in jail. He had gotten out once, and he wasn't about to let the authorities cage him up again. The first hurdle he had to overcome was lowering the incredibly high bail that the court court set for his release. While in prison, he called the county clerk, claiming to be the judge of his own case. He told the clerk's office that there had been a mistake, and Stephen Russell's bail should be lowered to $45,000. Russell called the clerk, impersonated the judge who was in charge of his case, lowered his own bail, and did it all from within the walls of the prison.
He lowered his own bail?
Bail to the much more manageable amount of $450,000, which allowed Russell to pay it with the help of friends. He made bail, left the prison, and before anyone could figure out they'd been caught, Russell fled to Florida. His reasoning for pulling off the escape was so that he could spend more time with the new love of his life, Philip Morris. There were a couple patterns that defined Stephen Russell during this time of his life. The
What
first
the
was that he was
fuck?
really good at getting out of jail. The second was that he was a
How did he cause and lower his own bail? What the
hopeless
fuck?
romantic. His escapes all seemed to center around being with the man he loved. Eventually, the authorities tracked down Russell in Florida. When he was arrested, his sentence was much longer than the previous one. This time, he got 45 years in prison. Philip Morris also received jail time for aiding and abetting Russell, but his sentence was for a much shorter period of time. If Morris was going to be out of jail, Russell wanted to be by his side. You can probably guess what Stephen Russell did next. In order to rejoin the
Escape
man who loved in
again.
the outside world, Russell needed to get out of jail, and he certainly was not going to wait 45 years to do so. Once again, Russell would walk right out the front door of the prison without so much as a minor conflict. And this wasn't just any prison. Russell was being held at the maximum security Estelle unit to make sure he wouldn't escape again. You won't believe how he pulled this one off. Russell discreetly started to collect green markers from around the prison. He would hide them on his person and bring them back to his cell. He also managed to steal an extra generic prison uniform. The guards of the prison wouldn't just let someone in a prison uniform walk out, but they would let someone wearing medical scrubs leave the prison unquestioned. It seems that the guards and the medical staff at prisons don't always know one another, so when Russell used the green markers to dye the prison uniform, it looked just like a regular pair of scrubs that the medical staff were wearing. Perhaps the most surprising part of this escape was that Russell was being held at maximum security.
He snapped,
prison, and
though.
yet he was still able to walk right out the front gate. After his escape, Russell had one thing on his mind: to find
Play War Thunder now. Join millions of players across the globe in massive battles on tanks, aircraft, and helicopters in the most expensive vehicle
This nigga got out of jail fucking 4 times.
tracked down his lover, they ran away to Biloxi, Mississippi, where they hoped to live peacefully away from the Texan authorities.
Not jail,
that were
prison,
scouring
bitch.
the country for the escaped con man. Unfortunately for Russell and Morris, they were eventually caught and returned to prison. This time, Stephen Russell was tried for unlawful escape, which added another 45 years to his sentence. Once again, Russell found himself separated from the man. he loved.
Dumbass.
At this point, Russell
So, whoa, hold up. So you had less than a year. No. He had, I think they said like a couple months. Yeah, he had less than a year at first. You tell him you ain't just do that and come home and be free for the rest of your life. You tried to escape and got 45 years, escaped again and got another 45 years. Fucking dumbass.
also must have been tired of tricking the authorities and having them chase him all around the country, so
Fucking
his final escape
dumbass.
would need to be conducted in a way that ensured the police wouldn't come after him. Stephen Russell knew just what to do. Russell figured that the only way the police would ever leave him alone is if he was dead, so he planned his own death. This way, he could live a long, happy life with Philip Morris without worrying about the bothersome authorities. Russell did not waste any time once he was recaptured. He must have known Philip Morris would be released long before he was, so he set up his plan in motion almost immediately. He needed to make his fake death as convincing as possible, so every day he took laxatives to cause his body weight to drop to make himself seem ill. He also managed to do something that has not been explained to this day. Russell somehow got hold of his medical records and was able to change them to indicate that he had HIV. Stephen Russell did not have HIV, nor should he have had access to his own official medical records. This may have been
How is he getting access to all this shit?
Stephen Russell looked almost like a corpse. His skeleton was showing under his skin, and he was at an unhealthy weight. Not only did he physically look not well, but his medical records now falsely backed up that Russell was very sick. In March of 1998, Stephen Russell was sent to hospice, where the authorities figured he would live out the rest of his short life. They would finally be rid of the con man who embarrassed them once and for all. In a hospice facility, even one that contains prisoners, the security is relatively relaxed. No one expects emaciated, dying inmates to make an escape. But Russell was not dying. In fact, he wasn't even sick. Russell waited for the ideal moment, then walked out of the hospital to freedom. To ensure the Texas authorities wouldn't bother him again, he even forged his own death certificate and sent it to the Texas courts. Unfortunately for Stephen Russell, he had embarrassed the Texas authorities one too many times. Not everyone believed he was dead. The authorities had been tricked before, and they were not about to let this con man trick them again. They dug
Hey, you
deep to
better
ensure
not.
that Russell was in fact dead, and this was not just another one of his cons. They soon discovered that Stephen Russell had once again duped them. Understandably upset, the Texas authorities launched a manhunt to track down Stephen Russell. They found Russell down in Florida, where he was captured.
Why you keep going back to Florida? Fuck.
This
What's
time
wrong
when
with
they
this
arrested him,
guy?
the police made sure he would never escape and embarrass them again. Stephen Russell was sentenced to 144 years in prison, 45 years for the original embezzlement charges, and 99 additional years for his escapes. That is a long time to put someone in jail when the crimes committed were non-violent. But the authorities were not satisfied yet. Stephen Russell now spends 23 hours a day in solitary confinement at the Polunsky Unit in Texas. He only gets an hour for recreation and shower time, where he is carefully watched to make sure he doesn't escape again. Does the punishment fit the crime? Probably not. But it would seem the Texas authorities were so embarrassed by Russell's escapes that they needed to make an example of him. In interviews, Stephen Russell recounted his final intake process. He was stripped completely naked, where he was thoroughly examined for anything that was hidden on his body, including in uncomfortably personal places. He was then told to put his boxers back on and sit in a chair so his head could be shaved. After the physically invasive process, he was sent to the prison psychiatrist for a mentally invasive interview. Some of the questions asked of Russell were, where have you been since you left our custody? What were you doing? Were you in contact with Philip Morris? Did you do drugs? Are you still a homosexual? Then, before he was transported to solitary confinement, where he would spend the rest of his life, he was stripped naked and searched once more to make sure he didn't steal anything while being interviewed. Stephen Russell is still in solitary confinement with limited visitor privileges and only 1 hour of recreation a day. I Love You, Philip Morris is based off his escapes and love for a man he will most likely never see again. Russell says he only has himself to blame for his sentence, and that he understands
Yes, you
why
do,
Philip Morris has
dumbass.
not come to visit him since his final arrest. Some activist groups question whether the sentence of 144 years in solitary really fits the crimes that Stephen Russell
Damn,
committed.
144 years in solitary?
Over and over again is one way to get a lifetime sentence in prison. Now, check out the most insane ways men escape
No,
from
that's
prison.
not
Or
right.
watch Men Escape
I understand prison, but solitary, my guy. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, man. Comment down below what y'all want me to react to next. Let's run it up, man. Let's get it.